Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and this is Dear Profiler Pat, where you send me your questions, ask for some advice. I give some, and I hope it helps you in your life. And if you're new to the channel, please do like and subscribe. Check the playlist, see what's out there for you. And also, if you'd like to send me a question, send it to profilerpatbrown@gmail.com and put in the subject line, Dear Profiler Pat. Okay, this question. Dear Profiler Pat, how do I deal with a person who has views I think abhorrent? Now, I've gotten this question actually numerous times, so I'm putting it all into one because we have a crisis in our society at the moment where when a person has a differing viewpoint, be it political, religious, and recently for me, it was whether I thought somebody was guilty or not for in a trial situation. Pretty much anything these days. That people get so angry and so upset they cut off relationships. They don't talk to their family anymore. They throw a friend away they've known for 20 years. And as a profiler in the recent thing that I've been dealing with, I did a video. A set of videos talking about a recent trial, and I said I disagreed with the verdict that the jury came to, and I have concerns about our particular jury system because I think the jurors are untrained, and although they mean well, I think they're really not up for the job. And there's a lot of people who disagreed with me. They thought the jury did a great job, and that because they believe that the defendant is innocent and she was found not guilty. So I did these videos on my viewpoint on civilian juries, lay juries, and what I think the problems are. And I have probably lost hundreds of subscribers in the last 2 days. I have received hundreds of hateful, vicious comments. Vicious. And people say, oh, yeah, but that's just YouTube. Everybody. But I see this happening in all of life. And this is what people are asking me a question about. What do I do about this person? I don't like their thinking. And so this is what people, Pat Brown, you're a horrible person. You're this, you're that, you're stupid, you're nasty, I never want to ever hear from you again. I used to like you, but now I hate you. It's like overnight I become the evil one. I'm become evil for many reasons. I might be a shill for the government. I might be, I don't know. Just all of a sudden I'm the enemy on one issue. And I see this everywhere around me. And I see the people that are coming to me saying, what do I do about my father, about my friend, about just about everyone who doesn't agree with the way I think. And when I say, what do I do with people whose views I think are abhorrent? Let's look at the word abhorrent. And I have actually pulled up a definition. Inspiring disgust and loathing. All right, why does this person's viewpoint inspire disgust and loathing? And this is the first thing I think, if you have somebody in your life that you are revolted by because of a particular viewpoint they have in politics or religion, or I say any kind of subject where you find that you have an opposing opinion, why do you find them disgusting? And why do you loathe them? For their opinion. And this is, I say, a huge, huge problem. People used to be a lot more accepting of other people's opinions and kind of like, yeah, whatever, whatever. And as Patrick Swayze said in Roadhouse, opinions vary. And I've stuck by that forever because I want to keep my family and friends because they're precious to me. And just because I don't agree with them on something, I don't want to loathe them, despise them, find them revolting because they think differently than myself. Now, there are instances when perhaps to the point where, and this is where I think you have to get to a point where, let's say your husband says, I like little children, and then not the way you think. Okay, that might be an abhorrent opinion, worthwhile a divorce, and maybe contacting the police. Okay, that would be beyond the point of any return. Okay, um, but most of the things people find offensive to them are just things that people think differently. And maybe you think that that person, why do they think differently than you? And we all come from different backgrounds. We have different experiences in life, and we have different ways of thinking because that's why we have, for example, I'm not a political, I don't go into politics here or religion, but let's say in a country that has a thing called an election, you're going to get these people who are going to vote this way, and these people are going to vote this way. And the point of having that system is so that you can have differing candidates and people vying for political positions, and sometimes this one will win and sometimes this one will win, and things go back and forth depending on the mood of the country or the state or wherever, and nothing always goes your way. You don't agree with everything, but the idea is that you kind of pull the rope this way and pull the rope that way, and you have an ability to try to understand that people have differing viewpoints, and that's why we have these different candidates who will say, I believe in this and I believe in that, or I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. Sometimes we don't like what they're going to do. Maybe we don't like the candidate themselves. Maybe there's it's just that person doesn't appeal to us, but they appeal to our friend or our father or whomever, even a spouse. You see things differently. Is that just because you see things differently, does that make you have to hate the person because they see things differently than you? I mean, and this is what I see going on all the time. I find it astonishing that the person, it's so offensive to you, if that's what your issue is. It's so offensive that a person thinks politically differently or has a different religion than you, or just sometimes people get angry if you didn't like the movie they liked. Why is it so offensive to you? And if it is, my guess is you're the problem, not the other person, because you're taking it as an insult to yourself that if this person thinks this way, they're saying what I think is wrong, and therefore I don't like them anymore. Because and as if the world is black and white, it has to be absolute this way or absolute that way. The world is mostly in between, and we sometimes, as human beings, we go back and forth. Sometimes we more this way, and sometimes we're more that way, depending on what our experiences are. So somebody thinks differently than you. So what? So what? So the question really comes at, if it's repugnant, I'm going to go back to this, inspiring disgust and loathing. The only thing that should inspire disgust and loathing is something that is, say, so egregious. And as I pointed out, perhaps child pornography would be something that maybe it's a bridge you cannot cross, cannot accept. So no, if you're on the side of the bridge that likes child pornography, I'm going to be on the other side, and then I'm going to burn the bridge, because there's some things you cannot accept. But a lot of other things, it's more in your own mind that the reason you're so upset is because you have placed your own viewpoint and it exploded it to such an extent where you become enraged about your own, like it has to be my way. You have to think my way. If you think the other way, you're just a horrible human being. You're ridiculous. You're stupid. You're silly. And I think the problem is you are not confident in yourself and your own opinion. Because I have people disagree with me all the time. And I'm like, well, as Patrick Swayze says in Roadhouse, opinions vary. And just because you don't agree with me and I don't agree with you doesn't mean I'm going to wake up in the morning still being Pat Brown, and I'm going to be okay with that. And I know some people aren't going to agree with me. My sons and I just discussed whether The Sopranos is the best series that ever existed. I just finished watching the whole thing. I said, I think it's a dude show, more than for females. But there were things I liked about it. There were things I didn't like about it. So we had a 4-hour discussion. And we came to a point where he said, okay, I see what your point is. And I said, I see what your point is. And there we go. He will always think that's one of the best shows ever made. And I could, I'm not so thrilled with it. I have some parts of it I liked and a lot of parts I didn't like. So we disagree. And we're still friends and mother and son, and we don't hate each other. I don't loathe him. I don't think his opinion was abhorrent. He didn't say my opinion was abhorrent, you know. And so I just find that the concept that other people's opinions are abhorrent, it's abhorrent, that you, unless they're, I say such an extreme, but a lot of people are taking things that shouldn't be extreme and making them extreme, just going crazy about it. And I'm trying to think of a good example. Let's say people have concerns about race. And I'm a person who is married to a Black Jamaican for 25 years. I have 2 biracial kids and 1 Black son. So I've always been an interracial community ever since I was an adult. But somebody will come, somebody might have some racial concerns, maybe say some things racially, and not the N-word. I'm not talking about that. If somebody says the N-word in front of me, that to me is abhorrent. It's a bridge too far. And I would say to them, look, the first thing you do is if somebody is saying something offensive to you, not just to have an opinion. If somebody says to me, I'm concerned about the Black crime rate, that's an opinion. I could say why. I could get into discussion. What's your concern? Oh, I've seen all these videos, and Black people are like going into Walmart and stealing all this stuff. I said, okay, let's talk about that. And I can respect that what his concerns are, but I can also talk about the fact that what's going on, why things are the way they are, why you may be seeing it this way and I'm seeing it that way, whatever. I can have a discussion about that. I don't have to be insulted because my kids aren't white and they're talking about Black people as if they're criminals. I can talk to them about it. And I can understand maybe they are concerned about where they are in society and what's going on. And it's not an unreasonable concern if I don't take it personally. But we can have a discussion. And therefore, we can still be friends. We can still hang out and all that stuff. And I could simply say to them, there may be appropriate times to bring something up like this at inappropriate times, because that's always true. So, you don't want to bring up a subject matter that's going to upset the people around you. That to me, that's again somebody's personal problem. If you don't like a certain political person, you don't go hang around people who are politically like that person, and then spew a whole bunch of nasty stuff about that person and every person who ever voted for them. That's just rude. Just don't do that. Just be with them and talk about other things. Don't talk about politics. Just don't. Same thing. You're going to a religious. Don't go to a group of Christian people and start saying, "Oh, y'all believe in those stupid fairy stories." Okay, that's rude. It's your problem, not theirs. You're being just a rude human being, and they might want to say, "Your opinion, your comment is abhorrent." Not necessarily your opinion in general is abhorrent, but your comment is abhorrent to us. And if you're going to continue talking that way around as we prefer, perhaps you would like to leave, and maybe another day when you're not so trashy about what you're saying, we can get together again. So here I am, this person has said something I found a little bit of concerning their opinion. Let's say they say the N-word. That to me is abhorrent. And I would say to them, that is unacceptable. I do not like racial slurs of any sort or religious slurs of any sort. I find that offensive. And I would ask you never to say that around me again. I think that is a reasonable thing to be able to say, because it's not just an opinion about, something going on in the world. Or let's say my uncle once said to me he was concerned about me marrying a Black man. And I wasn't upset by that because it was 1979. He was realistically concerned about how the children would be when, we had children and they're growing up. Turned out to be fine, but I understood his concern. And for that reason, I wasn't angry with him. I just listened to his concerns and said, that's fine. Now, if he had said, you can't marry that N-word, I would have gotten out of the car. I would have said, I'm not okay with that. I cannot be around a person who uses that language. I cannot. Someday, if you would like to not speak that way, we can get together again. So there are times when you have to walk away from somebody who what's abhorrent to you is abhorrent in a way that's not just a political opinion, not just a religious viewpoint, not just some basic thing that you just don't agree with, that you think, oh, I disagree with this political principle, or I know I'm Christian, but that person is Hindu, so so does one of us have to make fun of the other's religion? No, we do not. We don't have to act that way. So we can be polite to each other. We can have decent behavior, and maybe we just don't talk about religion when we get together. And one of my favorite moments when I was in India was I took a gondola ride. These tourist things where you get in a gondola and you go across this beautiful area and a big huge gully or whatever. And on the top of the hill was a Hindu temple. And when we got there, I was with a group of educators, and some of them are Hindu and some of them were Seventh-day Adventists. And so we got to the top, and the Hindus went into the temple, the mandir, and they did puja, which is a religious ceremony, a prayer type thing. And the Seventh-day Adventists just stayed outside and chit-chatted and had a nice time. And then the Hindus came back out and everybody got back together again. We all got back. Nobody had an issue. The Christians weren't going to bring up the Hindu, attack the people who are Hindus, and Hindus weren't going to attack the people who are Christian, because they were all educators. They were working together to provide education for poor children. And they wanted all poor children to get an education, regardless of their religion. So they had the decency to act right around each other. So if you're of two different political persuasions, you either just choose not to discuss it. If you love discussing things and you're friendly about it, that's fine. But if you just have two different political persuasions, just don't discuss it in each other's company. If it upsets anybody because they just get you all agitated, just don't discuss it. But if you think the other person's viewpoint is abhorrent because they voted for this candidate and you think that candidate is horrible and therefore they're horrible, if you're gonna make people horrible just because they vote for somebody different from you, that's pretty sad. And I think a lot of times this stuff is highly exaggerated. Oh, if you voted for that person, you must be, you're as bad as that person. And it goes both sides of politics in this country. And sometimes there's three sides to politics. So, there people just attack anything. That's not what they believe in. So religion, if you're in a public location, it should be off the table. Don't, if people are saying things out in public that are rude, that is abhorrent, not because of what they're saying you disagree with, but it's abhorrent to be rude to people in public when you don't know what their beliefs are. I would never say anything politically, religiously, or just anything I know in a group of people I don't even know who they are. I would never have the gall and arrogance to sit there and say, oh, I can talk about this because this is the only way to think. And therefore, I don't care if you're upset and insulted by what I say. You're a horrible person if you do that. And I've seen a lot of horrible people recently that do this in a public location. If you're in a public location, don't say anything about things that are subjects that are difficult. And when somebody does come and say those kind of things out loud in public in an area where they don't know who thinks what, that is actually abhorrent. Somebody sits there and trashes a particular religion or a particular a political group, or trashes whatever they're trashing. That is just outright abhorrently bad behavior. Don't do that. So I think a lot of the people who are upset that other people's views are abhorrent are the ones who are actually being abhorrent, because you think that your views are so right and the other person is so ridiculously wrong, not only ridiculously wrong, but evilly wrong or terribly wrong and nastily wrong or just a crappy person because they believe that you think it's okay to be rude to them. Your behavior may be more abhorrent than their views. So keep that in mind, because we should be nice to each other, and don't throw out all your friends and family because they have a different viewpoint than yours. I say unless it's something to the point, and I know. And believe me, below, I don't want one political comment or one religious comment. Just don't even do it. But just because you think it's some viewpoint is abhorrent, unless it is truly something illegal, something to the extent of no human being, regardless of the religion or their politics or anything else, would think that's okay. You know, if somebody says to you, well, I'm sick of my wife's parakeets, I think I'll beat them in the head with hammers. You can consider that abhorrent. You might consider that person abhorrent. You might want to get away from that person because that's pretty sick. You know, some people want to throw the doggy out the window. You know, they'll do it. They'll actually do things. Not that their behaviors are more abhorrent than the things they say. Then you might say that's abhorrent behavior. And I can't be around a person who has abhorrent behavior. That's absolutely true. If a person has abhorrent behavior, they shouldn't be. You have every right to say, I'm stepping back and I don't want you around my kids because your behavior is abhorrent, not just you have a different viewpoint. But if their viewpoint is a kind of viewpoint you're uncomfortable with, you can simply say to them, I'm uncomfortable with your viewpoint and I want to stay friends. I want to stay family. And I want you to be able to come around my family and friends and kids. So I would request you just don't speak on that in my presence. And if they're decent people, they will say, I understand, and they will shut the hell up. And if they say that to you, because they might as well, just as well say that to you, you can say in return, I get it. Let's not discuss that. There's too many other nice things to talk about in the world that I don't want to say things that upset you, just like you don't want me to say things that upset me. So, yes, learn to be fair and nice and respectful, and have hope and ask other people to be the same. And I hope we'll see this world change. And I hope that people can stop acting the way they do, being so nasty to each other. It's just really sad. And I've seen too many families break up over this, and friendships break up over this, and I don't like to see it. So do your best to not find everything somebody else thinks abhorrent, unless it's really, really, I say, that bridge too far. Thanks for being here again. If you're new to the channel, please do like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.